This is 48-year-old Philip Mayfield. He went in for routine back surgery and came out paralyzed from the neck down. This is 55-year-old Kelly Martin. She went in for routine back surgery and didn't leave the OR alive. Today's story hits me at my core. As surgeons, we take an oath to do no harm. But what happens when a surgeon uses this knife as a weapon? Dr. Christopher Duntsch was a neurosurgeon who went rogue. He claimed to be the best in the business, but 33 of his patients ended up disabled, paralyzed, or killed. The shocking story is told in the hit podcast, Dr. Death.
Imagine you're struggling with back pain for months. No one can tell you what's wrong. Then you find a doctor.
And the words that he said that I wanted to hear was, "I can fix you." And, those are magic words. I was in pain, and somebody, a neurosurgeon, said I could fix you.
You trust he'll take care of your problem.
Nothing but good reports and a list of accolades that were 2 pages long.
When you talk to him, he's engaging, he seems very intelligent, he's witty, he's charming.
He'd always talk about, "I'm going to be a doctor."
But he has this dark side that he likes to keep separate and hidden from everybody else.
This is a story about 33 patients who put their trust in a prominent surgeon in Dallas.
State your full name for the record.
Christopher Daniel Duntsch.
And wish they hadn't.
This friend called me and said, "I believe that your doctor is on the news that he has been killing patients."
And it's a story about a system that failed to protect them at every possible turn.
I'm trying to stop this guy from being let operate anywhere, anytime, any place.
Have you ever been under the influence of any drugs during the time that you were performing spinal surgery on any patient?
I take the fifth.
This was not an operation that was performed. This was attempted murder.
Whoa, don't take no vacation in this land.
That's not how that story's supposed to end,
As a surgeon, I am horrified by this story. I don't get spooked easily. I'm joined by the host of the Dr. Death podcast, medical journalist Laura Beil, and attorney for 14 of Dr. Death's victims, Kay Van Wey. I guess I find it hard to believe a real doctor could do these things. So maybe the first question should be, was this guy a real physician, adequately trained, or was he an imposter?
Well, he was a real doctor on paper. I mean, he had an MD, he had a PhD, he went to medical school, he went to one of the top spinal training programs in the country, he had a very prestigious year-long fellowship, but clearly he was a horrible surgeon. So the question is, how did that happen?
This is part of what bothers me. Obviously, this horrible man we're going to get to in a second, but I want to also examine how he got where he got, why someone didn't stop him down in the process. A director of his residency program, other residents, the doctors he was operating with. And Laura's reporting explains in painful detail how horrific these surgeries really were, which makes me think it was observed by other professionals who maybe could have done more, should have done more. You described, if I get, please add things if I've forgotten things, extreme blood loss, not just a little trickle here and there, but basically gushers when that's not what neurosurgery is about. Malpositioned, malplaced hardware, right? Putting those bolts in it to stabilize the spine, wrecking nerves, which is often irreversible, messing up arteries, invading the spinal cord, which is, a place you just don't travel. And
right, in one case, the case he was finally prosecuted on, he screwed a piece of hardware into the patient's back muscle instead of her spine.
And no one's alone in the OR, Kay. I mean, I know one of the surgeons that I heard when I was doing my homework said that it was horrible, so bad, he ran away and vowed never to operate with him again. That sounds pretty brave, doesn't it? I say to myself, well, I mean, hey, you can run away, but the patient can't run away. And the next patient can't run away either.
Now, let's be clear. There were doctors who did speak up, and there were doctors in the OR. One doctor tried to physically restrain him from operating, to keep him from operating.
So why was he not successful?
I think they walked him through, and I think in a lot of these cases, the exact damage wasn't really clear until the patients came out of surgery. For example, in the case of one lady who passed away, so all they knew during her surgery was that there was an extreme drop in blood pressure, and it was only after the family requested an autopsy that they found out he had cut a major artery and she had bled to death internally.
Laura, my issue is not with the nurses and the other assistants in the operating room, it's with the other physicians. Because you have to often work in teams. So there had to have been people witnessing these 33 attacks on other humans who could have done much. I speak about this with a lot of discomfort because I've witnessed these kinds of things. And I remember walking out of the operating room and firing people because I just didn't think they were going to be safe on the outside. Because the inside joke is that MD degree is a license to kill if it's not used right. So we have a higher obligation to protect the patients more than the people we're trying to train, which is why this case upset me so much. But Kay, how did Dr. Duntsch finally get caught?
So he was caught in his residency. And as you know, residency programs are to train, but also to weed out the people who either don't have the mental capacity or the technical skills. They're supposed to not pass them through, but he was passed through. And then once he came to Dallas, he was considered to be a cash cow because he offered to make, as neurosurgeons do, not millions, but tens of millions of dollars for the hospitals that he worked for.
Yeah, all that stated, he ended up with life in prison. So someone finally spoke up and said, enough is enough. I'm not taking the back seat anymore. So how did he get caught?
So it was Dr. Henderson who really took up the cause initially. And
Dr. Henderson is what kind of a doctor?
He's a spine surgeon. But it took months and months and months and months, and every institution that is there for the purpose of protecting patients sat on their hands and said, we can't act, we've got to afford the doctor his rights, we're afraid of getting sued by the doctor, and stood by and let this happen.
And eventually they gave up and went to the district attorney. They said the only way for this to stop is for him to be arrested. So some of these doctors, they started going to the district attorney. Kay went to the district attorney. There were patients going to the district attorney. And think about that, like you're going to the police saying what happened to me is not just malpractice, it was criminal. Like how unprecedented is that?
Talk about unprecedented. The doctor being sentenced, think about this, doctor being sentenced to life in prison. It has never, ever happened in the entire history of American medicine. Completely unprecedented. I mean, unfathomable that this would happen. And yet that's what it took. And that's how bad the situation was. I want you to take a look at Dr. Duntsch's interrogation tapes. I want you to get a better idea of what this guy was like. Take a listen.
Here's exactly what happened. I'm not over-trivializing this. I was only 3 millimeters off to the midline, and it broke out to the middle, and it caught one of her nerves. So her L4-5 nerve on the left, which I feel like it was because I got overwhelmed by the executive of the hospital coming into my operating room, freaking out about the patient who was dying, not following my orders about this patient, me trying to get this patient closed. If I had slowed down and followed my neurosurgical training, I would have been able to finish my Zephyr, and that complication would not happen.
It makes me so angry. He's blaming the hospital. He's blaming an administrator because he didn't do what he needed to do. He couldn't own any responsibility. What was his motive, Kay? Why would anybody do this? He must have realized he wasn't capable at some level.
Well, it's hard to say what his motives were, but in this case, Dr. Duntsch was very fond of sending long, rambling, late-night, middle-of-the-night emails. He said in one email to his girlfriend at the time that the people that were closest to him and knew him the best figured that he was either God, the Antichrist, or a cold-blooded killer. So that's some evidence there. He actually emailed me around the holidays in 2014 and threatened me personally, but it was so hard to follow because he said there's going to be severe consequences for you if you don't do what I say. And I'm trying to read it and say, well, what am I supposed to do? Because on the one hand, he said that I had caused him harm, and he was to the tune of $200 billion. He was suing me for $200 billion. But then it also said, but you know, I'd like to come to work for you because I think you're really ignorant, but you're effective. And it's $1,000 an hour, and I'll come to work for you. So that led me to believe that he was, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it was very separated from reality, very mentally off.
The most dangerous doctors that I've run across are not the people who don't know anything. It's the people who don't know that they don't know anything.
Right. Yes.
And you may have run into folks like this in your own lives, but that's really hard because in medicine, everyone thinks they know everything. That's why we go to medical school.
Right.
And that's part of the question for UK. What light does this shed on the healthcare community? I'm very proud of my profession. I have remarkable confidence in our ability to do the right thing. But the one weakness we have is we don't like policing each other. It's not in our culture. So what do we know more about problems like Dr. Duntsch? Because there may be other ones out there we haven't caught yet.
I'm sure there are others out there.
Yes, no doubt about it. Well, this is not a new problem. And I'm sure that hospitals don't like to police doctors. I'm sure doctors don't like to police one another. But the patients don't have any power. And the job of the hospitals is to police their doctors. And I want to say as well that I have the highest respect for the majority of people in healthcare. They're well trained, they're well intentioned, they're in the profession to help people. But the systems are there to protect us, we, the patients, against the dangerous few. We come into this world as a patient, we leave this world as a patient. And people who are there to protect us are not doing their jobs.
So up next, one of Dr. Death's surviving patients is speaking out after waking up paralyzed from the neck down. And what's being done to protect you? That's the real issue for me. How are you not going to fall prey to an evil doctor? Don't go away. We're back going inside the new hit podcast, Dr. Death, asking how a licensed surgeon got away with disabling, paralyzing, even killing patients inside the OR. Kay Van Wey represents 14 of the victims. We're about to meet one of Dr. Death's surviving patients. So Philip Mayfield was just 48 years old when he went in for his surgery with Dr. Duntsch. Kay, tell me about him.
Well, first of all, Philip and Angela are two of the nicest people you would ever want to meet. And Philip had what surgeons would consider to be sort of a garden variety spine condition. Other surgeons had told him that surgery wasn't the answer to his problems, that pain management, physical therapy, things of that nature were his options. But like most people know to do these days, Philip went to get a second opinion. Dr. Duntsch had all the right answers, which were surgery. Dr. Duntsch planned a certain surgery. All of the pre-op was for a certain surgery. When he got in there, he did a different surgery. A surgery that wasn't necessary, a different surgery than what was planned, and then he violated the spinal cord. He actually punctured the spinal cord and caused Philip to have a horrific spinal cord injury.
So Philip and his wife Angela join us now via satellite. Thank you for being here. Philip, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing well, Doctor. I can't complain.
Well, you're keeping your spirits up, which is wonderful. If it's okay, I'm going to take you back to discuss Dr. Duntsch's operation. What medical problem brought you to him?
I had a herniated disc at level C6, C7.
And did you trust him when you first met him?
Yes, I felt comfortable with Dr. Duntsch when I first met him. Like with all the other physicians that I had met with, I drilled them with questions to make sure they knew what they were doing. He was very professional. He did all the tests as the other doctors did. I mean, I didn't sense anything that was off with Dr. Duntsch when I first met him.
Tell us what went wrong during your operation as far as you know.
Well, I had my surgery on April the 9th, 2013. And I went in that morning for the surgery. I felt, okay, everything's going to go well. And was scheduled for 6 a.m., I believe. And when I woke up from the surgery, I was in a lot of pain. And I wasn't fully conscious as I would be, because I've been in surgery before and I know how it feels when you come from surgery. You know, some pains are expected, but this was more than the average. And my body felt very heavy and I couldn't move anything from the neck down.
Oh, from the neck
and
down.
And then yes, from the neck down, I couldn't move from the neck down. And normally after surgery, when you're recovery, the surgeon is there to, speak with you after the surgery, but Dr. Duntsch was not there. The nurses were there, the anesthesiologists were there, and they all seemed panicky. And trying to get me to, trying to get me to move.
Angela, when did you know something was wrong, terribly wrong?
Well, when we arrived there to the surgery center, we went to the back where Dr. Duntsch had marked him on the area where he was going to have the surgery, and that he told us that it wouldn't take but 30, 45 minutes. So we had already done our prayer as we normally would do, and after that I went out into the waiting room, but before I did, the nurses told me that I would be updated along the way of the surgery. So 45 minutes came, and then when the hour came, I just felt something like kind of hit me, and I'm like, something must be going on. And so I waited a little longer, about an hour and a half, and then by then Dr. Duntsch came out and came to me in the waiting room and said that everything had gone well, that he should be up to his norm within about 3 weeks.
He said he had done a good job, that he wasn't worried? Is that what he said? He said
everything had gone well, that nothing was wrong.
Well, this is so startling that he would not even recognize he'd messed up. What's been the harshest reality of all of this? The most difficult part for you?
Coming from our family, my husband and myself and 3 boys, we were very involved with activities, sports, going and traveling, doing a lot of things together as a family. And on April the 9th, that put a stop to a lot of things that we're able to do. And with that came a lot of syncopes, doctor visits, the children now having to change their lifestyle in a way of where they had to take on and helping us to cook and, just stepping up a lot.
Well, I feel very badly this happened to you. It should never have happened. Thank you for sharing your story, Philip and Angela. So we reached out to one of the best health advocacy organizations, the Public Citizen, and how patients can protect themselves from bad doctors. So here's what you guys can do. First, they say you can check out their doctors, all of our doctors, by going to each of us, no matter what state we're in, each of our states has a medical board website. Go to that website, enter your doctor's name, and you'll find out whatever's been reported to them. On these medical websites, there's a laundry list of items that should tell you exactly what you need to know about your doctor's past. You can visit droz.com for their full summary on how to stay safe. And as a surgeon, let me add something at a personal level. Getting a referral from someone you know, from a friend, is a really helpful way in picking a surgeon. The other thing I always tell my buddies is ask a nurse, because nurses are in the operating room. They see all the surgeons every day. They can tell who keeps their calm and who delivers and who doesn't. And they don't get caught up in all the politics. They'll just tell you what they know. They're nurses. They're good at healing patients. Everybody in the system, though, has to be vigilant to reduce poor quality care. I think there's a major challenge still in America, and we got to be better at that. Thanks to all my guests. And if you haven't already listened to the new Dr. Death podcast, I urge you to check it out now. They have a record number of 5-star reviews already. We'll be right back. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.